Oh, the bouncy balls?
Yeah. Okay, so this is the painter and the elves, and I've chosen 2 people to be painters, and the rest are elves, and they went and hid around the room, and you do need to give them parameters about, like, we don't hide under my desk if you don't want them to hide under your desk. Okay, so, and I play music, but some of it may not be very loud, and you may not be able to hear it. So once upon a time, there were 2 painters, and they painted beautiful pictures of rainbows and sunsets and fish and the other things that they're learning about in their general classrooms. And they were always so careful at the end of the day to make sure that the lids went back on their paint cans so that their paint did not dry out. But one night they were so tired, that they forgot to put the lids back on their paint cans. And they just went right to sleep. Go to sleep, painters. Ah, very good. Go to sleep. And I usually send them over to the side of the room so they don't get stepped on. Well, that very night, who should appear but some naughty little elves. Come on out, elves. And the elves saw the paint, and they put their hands in the paint. And then they put handprints all over the floor. And then they and then they wrote their name on the floor. And they took their hands and flicked them up toward the ceiling and left polka dots all over the ceiling. And then they put their feet in the paint. And they left footprints all over the floor. And they made zigzags on the floor. And swirls on the floor. They went skating all over the room. And you can incorporate all sorts of movement that they're working on in here. They galloped around the room. And we don't quite have enough room for that. And then they jumped in the paint, and this is where you have to have a big enough room. And they rolled on the floor. Don't roll if you don't want to, because we're old. They rolled on the floor, but the kids, of course, love this. And by the next morning, the room was covered in paint, and all of the elves went back to their hiding places. Excellent. Oh, I forgot my elf music. Okay. So as the sun came up, and of course you have to play Morning by Grieg. So as the sun came up the next morning, oh, beautiful music, the painters woke up and went into their studio and could not believe their eyes. The room was covered in paint. And they saw those tiny little handprints and those tiny little footprints and thought to themselves, we know who did this. It must have been those naughty little elves. We need to teach them a lesson. And my kids usually repeat what I say. We need to teach them a lesson. And I try to say not to play with people's things.
Not to play with people's things.
Without their permission.
Without their permission.
Because that's kind of the point of the story.
Because that's kind of the point of the story.
Oh yeah, we don't read that. They don't say that. So that night, they emptied out their paint cans, and they filled them up with glue. Ooh. And they pretended to go to sleep. Okay, pretend to go to sleep. Pretend to go to sleep. Very good. Pretend to go to sleep. Well, the elves had had so much fun the night before that, of course, they came back that night. So come on out, elves. But this time, when the elves stuck their hands in the paint cans, their hands got stuck. And then they tried to stick their feet in the paint cans, and their feet got stuck. And they were jumping around a little bit, not knowing what to do, when the painters came into the room. Come on in, painters. And the painters... Now, I always have to remind them when they get too loud. If you guys are loud, you're going to wake up the painters. Of course, that doesn't work at this point. But anyway, so the painters said, "You naughty little elves.
You naughty little elves.
I hope you learned your lesson."
I hope you learned your lesson.
And they pulled the little elves one by one carefully out of the paint. And we usually do this at the end of class. So I said, once you've been pulled out, you go line up at the door. Very good.
I want to be here today.
Yay! Yay!
I'm the door holder. I'm the store
Okay, children. Okay, children. Now, so we do this, and from the very first time, I never explain what we're doing. I just say, listen to what I'm saying. And if they need a little guidance, I'll say things like, okay, go to sleep, painters. But other than that, they basically figure out what to do based on what I'm playing. Now, because we're at my house instead of my school, because my school was closed, I have a playlist of what I use, and songs that I really like are ones by Bizet, like The Ball. There's a couple that are really good, and like I said before, Peer Gynt, Morning for the morning. And then I actually do, I believe it's part of Swan Lake Ballet, like the waltz or something for the beginning to introduce it. So when the elves come to life, I use Bizet's The Ball. Let me look at my playlist of things that won't play for me right now. I also use, nope, that's the painters. I also use The Spinning Top by Bizet. And then there's, one of them is The Witch's Dance by Schumann. But the ones I typically use are the two by Bizet because I think they sound perfect. All right, the end.